All right, Greg, we are back in the middle, and I didn't
We
think we'd
are.
be here this fast.
Oh, but there's a lot going on in the world.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the world, and just so you guys know, we'll probably be doing a couple more of these because this is a topic that is worth discussing.
Yeah.
Um, Today, actually, why don't you let us know how this kind of worked out? Because you,
Sure. Yeah, and we talk about this on the podcast. So everything that's going on in the world right now, all of the protests, the riots, the civil injustice that's happening, it's on everybody's mind. And so we decided to podcast. And one of the first things we did is that we brought on a law enforcement officer. Kurt the cop came on, kind of gave us the perspective of a police officer with the information we had at the time, and we thought it went really well. And for the most part, I think it did go really well.
hmm
But what we started to get feedback the day it posted, lots of positive feedback. And then we did have one person ask us, "Are you going to talk to a person of color?" And it really kind of hit us that when we went back and looked at it, while we still stand behind the podcast, we really were just three white dudes. We were
yeah,
three middle-aged white dudes talking about something that is really tough for us to have any kind of context of in terms of the racial injustice. So we invited somebody on, a person that was on the podcast in the past, Dani Trejo, and she was kind enough to come on and kind of just give us the insight we were lacking.
right.
So
Yeah. So big thank you to Danny for reaching out to us to do that, which is the reason why one of the main reasons why we started this podcast was we wanted to get other people's points of view.
mhm.
So without further ado, guys, in the middle with Danny Trejo. You're supposed to say roll it.
Roll it.
Welcome to the party.
Okay, guys, we don't know where to go with this, so we're just going to call this a combo. This is kind of topic thunder because I can't think of anything more topicy right now than what we're going through in the world here. Greg, why don't you take it from here?
Yeah, so it is currently Monday. We're recording this Monday, June 1st. We just dropped a podcast today, which we recorded last Thursday, which was the day after the George Floyd passed away, was killed during an arrest. And so on when that happened, we got on it right away. We said, let's get a show together. Let's get a perspective. Um, I come from a family of cops. My brother had contacted me, said, if you guys discuss this, I'd love to be on. I said, well, why don't we do that tonight? So we recorded, and it went well. I think it went well. We put that out today, and we got some immediate feedback. And some of that feedback, mostly positive. But then a question that kind of weighed on us a little bit was brought to us by Daniela, who we have on the show, where she said, are you going to get a perspective from a person of color? And I really started to think about it. I'm like, you know what? As good intentioned as we were when we were
Mm-hmm.
recording that, we were still three middle-aged white guys
Yep.
talking about a topic that at best we can sympathize with, but we cannot empathize with. I can't put myself in those shoes. I am constantly learning more and more. John, I don't know about quite how you were raised in this respect. Where I grew up in South Central Wisconsin, in a very farming community, um, we didn't have people of color. It was just the demographic. They they weren't in my school district. They weren't in my town. I believe we had one black student that was there for like half a year, and then he moved away. And other than that, it was a bunch of white kids, and then some like I think there was a Vietnamese and a Korean family where their dads had gone off to war and met a woman and brought her back to the United States and had kids, and that was it. I mean, that was really it. I didn't meet people of color until really I got to college. So, so that was brought up in. So yeah, we're going to talk about everything that's going on now that it's Monday. We've gone through protests Those protests have turned into massive riots. Those protests and riots have spread to just about every major U.S. city there is. And as of tonight, our president came on the air and he didn't quite declare martial law, but he kind of alluded to the idea where if these if the riots don't calm down, he will get the U.S. military involved, which is kind of a holy crap, this is where we're at. So,
yeah.
So that's kind of our background. That's where we're at.
Just give a real quick little thing on me. Greg, pretty much the same thing. I lived in a community where the diversity was pretty much 0 to none. I had a graduating class of 32. I think out of the entire high school there was maybe 500 kids, and I think there were one or two diversity people, and the rest was just white. This is the simplest way to say it. So my perspective, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm saying this correctly or not, but I guess it's white privilege. It's just that's all I know. And it's not. That's just all I know. That's my perspective.
For the longest time, I was so nervous calling black people because I didn't know if I could do that. Like, do I have to say African American because I'm the white guy, or can I say black people? And finally, I had a person say, "No, it's okay. You can call us black people." I'm like,
it was the same
okay.
guy, Greg. Remember, we talked to Robert Smith, and Robert Smith assured us that it was okay to say that because we didn't know. You're right. Yeah. I remember that day. We were like, "Are we allowed to say that?" You know.
So Danielle, we're gonna actually let you talk now.
Reintroducing Dani Trejo. She was a guest of ours on podcast. I think it was number 3 or 4.
Something.
Yeah. So, Dani, go ahead.
So, I too come from privilege. I, however, am brown. I'm first generation Mexican American. I'm 100% Mexican blood, but I was born in the U.S., so that is part of my privilege. I am a U.S. citizen legally from birthright, and I was born in a city that was very cultural. I was born in, outside of Chicago. I was born at Lutheran General Hospital. Then I grew up in Wheeling, Illinois, which had a diverse population. I went to one of the best high schools in the state. I went to District 214, and I talked to my roommate who is from Southern Illinois and had a very different high school experience than I did, who comes from rural Illinois and grew up on a farm, where I had a whole day dedicated to cultures. We called it the display of cultures in our high school. And we were able to witness and see all these different dances, songs, art, just different historical aspects from all of the students in our school. Whether it's Poland, Lithuania, Mexico, Colombia, India, Russia, but we still had a very small African American and Black community. We still did have a step team, which is a Black form of art. And so that was great. But you could tell that the minority groups still did stay together, which is totally understandable. You want to be around people that understand you kind of just at a basic level in high school because you just want to get through it,
Right.
So, I mean, being privileged in this way of being in a diverse area and preaching inclusivity at a younger age is wonderful, is great. I am part of the person I am today because of that. However, racism is so embedded in society that we have to actively fight against it. And that is something that I'm learning still to this day. And something that I've been learning within the last week. that I can't stay silent, because the silence is retroactive. It's not proactive. It's just like building new muscles. You can't not work on that muscle group consistently.
Right.
You can cycle through different aspects of muscles in order to strengthen all of your muscles, essentially.
Right.
Anyway, trying to describe it that way. So ultimately, because I'm not an expert, I would like to talk about how we can be active and be good allies, because I'm not Black. So I don't have the same experience as my Black friends or non-Black friends, whatever it may be. I don't have the same experience. And like I said, I have my own privileges. I come from a good family with, upper middle class, lower middle class. But at the same time, I did grow up with a single mom. So my wealth privilege is separate from my childhood privilege. It's completely different. But again, I've been educated. And so I will use my voice that has these privileges in order to help those who don't have that voice, to help amplify the voice.
Okay. So I guess the first question, I mean, I think we pretty much know, but can you take us a little bit to how this has affected you? I know this has affected you. It's affecting everybody. I kind of feel, God, I just feel drained. I don't even know what to say, how to think. I just get this. I'm drained and I'm disgusted and I'm really disappointed. And a couple of things that came to my mind, and I'm sorry, Danny, I'll get right back to you. But a couple of things that have gotten to my mind is I'm never, Greg, you and I, and it sounds like Danny a little bit, have never had that conversation of, you got to be a little scared, or you got to watch yourself when a cop's around. You gotta, when you're getting pulled over, this is what you do. Make sure your driver's license. I heard somebody talk about it today that they teach their son or their family members to keep their driver's license and all their information on the dashboard, so they go from the wheel to the dashboard, so there's no sudden movements. That kind of blew my mind. It made me think like, oh my God, that's a completely different perspective on reality versus what I have. So going back to you, Danny, tell us where you're at, what you feel,
Same. It's been sadness. It's been anger. It's been, some of it has been hopeful, seeing people my age being so passionate and so active and so willing to teach other people is what is so wonderful about this. Because without having these uncomfortable conversations, there won't be any change. So, this weekend was really difficult because I felt like I wasn't doing enough. I had a lot of guilt, I think. And from the moment I saw the Minnesota fund to help bail out people that were in jail for the night or whatever it may be, I started donating. And I knew from the position I was at in that moment, that was all I could do to help, because I couldn't be out on the streets protesting. I'm in Gurnee.
Yeah.
I'm so far away. And just keep spreading the word and not posting the violent videos, even though I do watch them. And because yes, it does prove a point to watch the angry videos or to spread the angry videos, but does it help further the conversation? So, yeah, in a mix of emotions, and yeah, I've been exhausted. It's very exhausting, but imagine having to live your life every day, having to explain yourself and your blackness or your brownness to everyone.
Have you ever had situations like that, Danny?
I've been very fortunate where really all I have to do is kind of just step in and explain why something that was said was wrong. I mean, it's been with family and with friends where it's like, hey, just so you know, that's probably not the right thing to say. Say this instead. Or just next time, please think about what you're going to say. I can't change your mind, but I can provide you with what I know and other resources if you want to learn.
And when you say that, and this is where I try to connect an experience like that to something that I do or something that I have experienced. And the closest I can come, I work in the disability field. I work with adults with disabilities.
Yeah.
And there's a language that people use all the time.
R word.
Yep. Yes, very, very much that. And I was
8th grade when my friend pointed out that that's not okay. And I said, oh yeah, you're right. That's really not.
But it's still, and this is where I can see, if I see that to, like, if I'm in a conversation and there is a person of color that's a part of the group, they understand when I be like, hey, you know what? That's actually not real cool to say that anymore. They understand that. One instance in particular, I remember I was at a campfire with a group of my friends. We're at this guy's house, and there's kind of one of those outlier people, like a friend of a friend, who came in. And at first, he brought his date, who he met on Tinder, and she came to the party with him, and she was a black woman, and everything was fine. And then he took her home, or she left, or I don't know. They did, they went away, and then he came back, and then he it started with just dropping N words and stuff like that, and I was like, "What? Wait, weren't you just you don't?" And I'm trying to does he think
was he using it as slang? Was he using it as slang?
He was using it as a descriptor.
Oh,
not in a slang.
Correct.
Oh, very much so. Yes, I sort of said that. Yes. So he was a white guy. He was probably twice my size, I would say, and just popping off. And then I was like, I'm looking at my friend. I'm like, that's not cool. Someone's gonna have to shut him down. And I had just met this guy that night.
Right.
And I'm like, am I gonna have to be the one to say something, or are we all gonna just let this go? And then he started piling on with the R word and lots of other things. And I had it at that point. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go over here now because you're using this word, and that's not cool. And I just went over, and I heard him. He's like, what's that guy's flower? And it kind of turned into a little bit of a thing.
Right.
But at the same time, and this is what angers me, and no one's willing to have those conversations. No one's in a group of white people, there's just not someone that's going to say, hey, you know what? Do we really need to say that anymore? I mean,
I think that's the wrong question to even ask the guy. I think the question to ask the guy is, hey, why do you feel you need to use that word?
Well,
that's how a conversation starts, right?
And I still know people that, they'll make a racist joke. I mean,
me too.
And
man.
they have up around where I live now. One of the towns close by us has actually a really high Mexican and Latino population. Just a lot of people have settled here, and there's one guy, he'll make a Mexican joke or whatever, and I'm like, why do you do that? And he one time said to me, wouldn't be a stereotype if it wasn't kind of true. And I went, what the fuck? I mean, I'm like, you're in my friend group and you think that? Are you kidding me? I was just taken aback. I had to have a sit down with him later, but yeah, it's still out there. I mean, anybody who thinks that racism is not alive and well and that the riots and everything are just a bunch of, is what I've read, thugs that are just trying to go out and steal stuff. I'm not going to say that there's not a factor of that, but the protesters themselves, racism is alive and well. And it's all out there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm bogarting. I shouldn't do that.
No.
mean,
You know
I'm
what?
proud of
I'm
you.
sorry. Go ahead, Danny. Sorry.
I'm proud of you for saying that you weren't okay with it.
And that's
difficult. It is so hard to be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But you get uncomfortable with the uncomfortableness.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you do it, the more you're able to back yourself up with the knowledge that you might need to fight someone who is, verbally, no altercations if possible.
Right.
To stand up for what's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you both bring up a really good point. It's I can see those situations that probably we all have had where we're in that moment of a great party, it's a great attitude. Someone says that one thing that you either ignore it because you don't want to ruin the vibe, or you don't want to be confrontational because everything's going well and this one person said this one word that made you feel uncomfortable. But you're right, Danny, maybe now is the time to go, hey man, wait a minute. I know we're having a good time and I know things are great here, but you don't need to poison the day with that. And
it's the question of, is that person's hate towards my friend, or even if you don't know the person, is that person's hate towards them more powerful than my love towards them?
it's a good question.
Like, your love towards that person, your kindness towards that person should let you be more comfortable in the fact that you are defending them than letting that hatred spread. And that person, like, when you see a fight, you hope that you can step in some way or another. You don't want to just look away. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, you could get hurt. But is that person's life worth more? Or less?
Yeah, no, yeah, I know what you're saying. Look, again, I'm struggling with this because I feel like because of the privilege I grew up with, I don't really have much to say. Like I don't have, you know what I mean? Like I can't,
And this is why I wanted to talk about things we can do to be positive allies.
So let's do that.
Well, before we do that, can I just?
Yeah.
Because I think that's good. But what I want to, before we tee up what we can do, what I run into the most in my circles are just white people that don't understand the privilege that they're living in. Like they will actively say, I don't have white privilege because I've never been given a job over a black person because I'm white. And I've never, and especially with this round of incidents, I've really started to take a closer look at where does my white privilege come in. And I would never deny that I had white privilege. I just would have a hard time identifying it.
Articulating.
But,
so the definition of white
well, hang on 1 second real quick. I'm sorry, Danny. It's not only that. I feel like white privilege is like this bad word that if you're associated with white privilege, then you're the problem.
Yeah, they think you're a racist if you have white privilege.
And
it's like not the case.
Yeah, right. It's just recognizing that, hey, I don't have to fear if I walk past a cop, or I don't have to fear that if I put up my hoodie and I'm walking down in the middle of the night, that I'm going to get pulled, something bad could happen, or that, I mean, I've seen videos where guys, and I don't know if they're what, no, I pretty much, I've seen guys who like antagonize police. They'll go there with a camera and just hang out by the police station filming stuff. And, I can tell he's white because, I can see him holding he'll like take a picture of himself saying like, hey, they're harassing me because I'm taking pictures, and those guys it just seems to me like they're looking for trouble. Right. So I don't know if people are are like I don't. God, I'm losing my train of thought here because I'm.
Well, I think it's the idea. I think it's the idea, like you said. I don't live in fear of police. If I see a badge or someone in a uniform, I don't automatically start to check myself and wonder how I'm looking and thinking about my environment. I just go, it's a cop over there. What's up, buddy?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's just my overall demeanor. People don't lock their doors when I walk by their cars.
Right.
I mean, it's that kind of, and I'm starting to recognize that more, that is my privilege. Less about, do I get a loan over another person, or it's just more the environment. People don't perceive me as a threat like they would another race, and which is wrong, totally wrong. You just need to see people. So, sorry, go ahead.
The idea behind white privilege is that we're not denying that life is hard, that your experience has been difficult, or that you might not face things that are difficult, that are out of your grasp. But the color of your skin is not going to be a factor.
Correct. Yep.
It's as simple as that. And like you said, the color of your skin helps, you can put your hoodie up and it's cool. It's fine. You can walk past the cop, and you at a young age didn't have to learn that when you are walking past a cop, make sure your hands are at your side, walk,
Yeah, right.
Contact, smile, and keep on walking.
Right.
It's not having to have that conversation with your 4-year-old. Hey, make sure that this and this and this and this.
Right.
So that way you come home alive.
Right. That's a powerful right there. You come home alive. Like, I don't like, that was never part of my driver's education was, this is how you make sure you're extra careful when you get pulled over. Right. That was never part of that. And that's part of their world. And
it wasn't part of mine either. But as a woman, I had the make sure that it's actually a police officer that's pulling you over.
Yeah.
Think it's a police officer? Call the cops and say, I have a vehicle with this and this and this identification. Can you confirm whether or not it's a police? That's also something else that, as a woman I've experienced, which doesn't equate it, but is still also an experience that is not that of a white male.
Right. So let me dive, and I don't want me to go off the tracks too much, but let me ask you about that. Was there ever a time, or is there a time now, or do you always feel this, where you're surrounded by guys that if they wanted to, they could physically manhandle you? Did you ever like have that fear? Somebody brought that to my attention.
Why do you think I'm strong?
So really, is that the reason why we've worked out, like you work out so hard?
100%. And, someone in a thread on Twitter at some point pointed out that, as high school girls, we are put in at least at my high school, again, privileged. We were able to do this. We had a self-defense class, and it was all girls. And the boys were playing dodgeball, not being taught not to hurt women at all. It wasn't even a conversation. Hey, just make sure that, you respect girls, you ask for permission. No, it wasn't a conversation they had. But girls, hey, just make sure, you carry your keys in between your fingers when you're walking in the dark at home. Make sure you have your phone in your hand. Make sure you're aware of your surroundings. You don't show cleavage, you don't show legs, make sure you're dressed appropriately.
Wow.
So you're not catcalled. So you don't feel uncomfortable. But
yeah, that's the wrong conversations to have.
Wow.
I mean, not that you shouldn't have those. I mean, I've got 2 daughters. I have those conversations with them, but I also have conversations with my son.
And you also you also have the conversation with your son to respect women, to make sure you ask permission, even if it's a kiss, you know, even when you're in a marriage for 40 years, hey, just making sure that what I'm doing still to this day, even though we have this kind of unspoken language, just to make sure that what I'm doing is still okay.
It's funny you said that. It's funny you said that. I remember I think it was this weekend, something happened to where I grabbed Ursula's arm and I pulled her back. And my first thought was, oh my God, what did you just do? Like, that was wrong. Like, you didn't have to do that. And so I don't think I apologized to her yet, but now I have to. I just forgot I did it. But yeah. But I mean, no, you're right. And like I said, I'm sorry to off track about that, but I thought that's something that I've never thought of until somebody brought that to my attention, that girls are in fear all the time that they can just get manhandled. And I don't mean to say it that way. I don't know any other way to say it.
So let's circle back to the race discussion and what can we do? Like you've got the audience of two middle-aged white men asking you right now, what can I do?
Well, what's great is you have this podcast and you are there to teach others. You are here to teach others. That's like your basic fundamental about podcasting, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with each other and expose that conversation in hopes that someone can learn something from it. So that's number one, teach others. Teach others. But in order to teach others, you need to learn from Black voices, whether it's reading, watching TV, watching movies. There's plenty of them. There should be more, but there's a lot. Reading history. I read a thread today that I never knew about. Fred, forgive me. I am going to have to pull out my phone here because I can't. The name escapes me.
Yeah, that happens to us all the time. We'll have a production meeting of like, we're going to talk about this person, and then we get to it and go, I don't know his name.
Yep.
Fred Hampton, a 21-year-old Chicagoan, was murdered in his sleep, and he was a Black Panther. So growing up, you're taught in history about MLK, how peaceful protest and all of that. And in this thread, I learned that the Black Panthers weren't bad. Most of their violence was planted by the president at the time, J. Edgar.
Really? I didn't know that.
There was a co-op FBI thing that went on where they basically planted an FBI agent that was trying to infiltrate Black activists and lessen their voice and use scare tactics for white Americans to make them seem threatening. And so therefore the Black Panthers were labeled as violent because they stood up for themselves. They had lethal weapons that were, they did everything right. They had their weapons, and the cops were less likely to go on their block if they knew that they were armed. But just as a defense.
Right.
So I'm not doing a good job of explaining it, but I am happy to provide all the links. And
Cool. Yeah, please do that. Yeah, absolutely.
You can put them in the description. Happy to provide all of it was just mind-blowing, this thread.
Ever since I heard that quote that history is written by the winners, that made me not second guess history, but just understood that I wasn't being told everything. We still celebrate Columbus Day, and that guy was a mass murderer, like a psychopath, and we celebrate him because he discovered America. They don't tell it that he basically mowed down every culture that was there already to, Anyway, this isn't about Columbus, but anyway.
But it starts, that's the foundation of it, right? It's the foundation of, hey, I'm here. I am going to assert my power. I am a white man. Here we go. Let's see what I can do. And
wait, Danny, do you think that's fair to say that it's like, I'm a white man, so here's my power?
I think he was European and he was able to use force in a different way than what the indigenous people were able to fight back with.
Absolutely. I'm just saying when you brought it like I'm going to use my white power. I don't know that's every,
And I don't know if it's right to say, I don't know. I think he believed he had more power than those around him and those around
No. I'm not disputing Christopher Columbus. What I'm disputing is the term I'm going to use my white power. I didn't know you were speaking for him, right? Is that what you were doing?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Then I misunderstood that. Okay. Sorry about that.
If I were him.
Okay.
I'm going to use what I have, which is skin tone that these indigenous people had never seen before, and it looks appealing, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways.
Yes.
I digress. Just looking into history, looking into the 1992 Rodney King riot, looking into the 60s and looking at the riots there. They're all the same protest.
Mm-hmm.
It's all against police brutality. It's all against, having to worry about making it home alive.
Mm-hmm.
That's because of the color of their skin.
Yeah. You know what keeps going through my head today is Colin Kaepernick.
Yes.
It's really going through my head because I'm ashamed to say now, I was one of those people that ignorantly, I said, you're ruining football because all they're doing is talking about this now. And I feel like such an ass for thinking that way. But that shows you that what's
that's
that?
Progress. That's great. That's
right.
Progress.
Yeah. It's like you said, if you're uncomfortable, you're learning. So I read I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought because I'm actually like physically sick. Honestly, I'm actually sick that my focus was on not listening to his message. Now I remember I got in a fight with my father over the fact that I felt that what he had a God-given right to do that, to take that platform and do that. I just was upset that ESPN and everybody just talked about it instead of the football game. But
kind of along the Colin Kaepernick thing is that his message got totally lost.
Yes, it absolutely
in the process. I remember
it got twisted.
It did. I remember when all that was going down, and I had family members that were very upset that he was kneeling during the national anthem, and they're like, what gives him the right to do that? People fought and died, and I'm like, well, it turned into a First Amendment discussion. I'm like, they fought and died for his right
to do that,
to do exactly that. And did I agree with it? Did I like that he did it? No, but I also like living in a country that we're allowed to do those things, and it's protected speech. I mean, you can't only protect the speech that you like. I mean, you have to, in terms, and this goes back to, I remember I saw the movie The People versus Larry Flint back in the day. It was a Woody Harrelson film. He played Larry Flint, who was the founder of Hustler magazine. And it was Edward Norton played his lawyer. And they actually, I believe, took the speech from the Supreme Court records where he said, you don't have to like what Larry Flint does. I don't like what he does, but I like living in a country that protects the speech of this while it's also protecting my speech to say whatever other things. And that really hit with me. So I think with the Colin Kaepernick thing, but even still, it wasn't his original message. He had talked to an American soldier somewhere. Was it a race message?
Originally he sat down on the bench while the national anthem played, and I remember the look just seemed smug, and and people thought he was just not standing because he didn't want, he didn't give a damn.
He didn't promote his message well enough to really get it out of this is the purpose for it.
Right. When somebody finally asked him,
right,
and this was after like 2 or 3 times, somebody actually asked him, he explained what it was for.
Mm-hmm.
And then he talked to a Navy SEAL the Navy SEAL suggested take a knee.
Yeah.
that's more respectful. And if you think about it, it's a lot more respectful to take a knee. We all, most people get on their knees to pray, right?
My mom
And
said the other day.
yeah, and there's like, it's also like back, for all you Game of Thrones people, it's bend the knee. It's showing submissive. So he wasn't sticking a middle finger at anybody. He was just saying, "Look, man, I'm just going to take a knee." And I thought there was nothing wrong with that. Again, I was being selfish. I was being stupid. I was being ignorant with the whole thing. So Colin, honestly, I'm sorry, because I think I badmouthed you a couple of times on a podcast. I'm not sure, but
well, I think I was going to say something about messages getting lost in translation.
Yeah, guys, just everybody that's listening here, this isn't going to be a great. We're not.
This is
just
not going to be a
raw.
linear conversation.
Yeah, we're raw here. We don't know how to really.
It's messy because it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to try to speak correctly, but trying here, trying is the effort that we are making. Trying to be better is what we can do. Is all we can do. Trying to be better. And so I think, being actively anti-racist is a new phrase that's like going around, anti-racist, because it's not enough to just not be racist, because we all are. We're all racist, but being anti-racist doesn't make you. What is the quote? I'm sorry, I'm going to look it up because
go for it. Yeah.
And I really, really love it. Let's see here.
While you're looking that up, you got it? Okay, go ahead.
The beauty of anti-racism is that you don't have to pretend to be free of racism to be anti-racist. Anti-racism is the commitment to fight racism wherever you find it, including yourself, and it's the only way forward.
I like that. Go ahead, Greg.
It actually matches up with what I was thinking of. Two things popped into my head. One, it was actually a song from a Broadway musical, and the song is "Everybody's a Little Bit Racist." It's from Avenue Q, and the song is meant in jest, but it strikes true still. Everybody has something, be it a racist joke or something, that you're going to laugh at because it's funny. And I even think of like David Chappelle, who would say stuff, and I'm like, he's like, yeah, laugh at that joke if it's a funny joke. I mean, that's just what it's for. That's why somebody told it. At the same time, that being, the recognizing that you're a little bit racist in certain areas, but then just not promoting that as an overall stereotype, or promoting that as, I don't even know how to say it. Don't want to say good, but just recognizing things. I know for a long time, the idea was I don't see color. Like people saying, well, no, I don't see color. I see all people. And I really started to think about that, especially when all this started. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to admit I do see color. Now I can celebrate that color in any way that I want. I'm not going to say that all food is just food and that I don't like Mexican food, because you know what? I like Mexican food. That's just what it is. You have to see the color, see the culture, and be okay with it.
And honor it.
Yeah. I think of, I'm going to tell the story, and maybe this is right or wrong. I guess y'all can tell me later. But I was traveling for work, and I'm down in Joliet, and I'm right by a big mall. I don't even know what the name of it was. It's just where the hotel was that work put me up in. And anytime I travel, I look for a good barbecue place, and I found one in a strip mall just like a mile away from my hotel. It was right off the interstate, right next to a car dealership. I remember it was sandwiched between like a nail salon on one side and a martial arts place on the other. And here's this little barbecue joint. And I'm like, okay, we'll see how this is going to be. I walk in, and there's two guys behind the counter. One he looked like he was probably about 5'5", 5'4", just a short, really wide black guy, and he had the apron on with barbecue sauce all over it. And next to him was his son, who looked to be about 6'6" and built like a brick shit house. And I'm like, that's who I want to get barbecue from. Those guys, just based off of how they're looking right now, I know they have it down. And you know what? It was excellent. I was totally right in that. So again, I saw it and I went, this is going to be good. And it was.
Did they own the barbecue?
Yes,
joint?
it was their place. It was their restaurant. They were very proud. And they had every right to be.
So based off of that,
Mm-hmm.
did you tell other people, hey, go to this restaurant, it's amazing?
Absolutely, I did.
That's great. And now if you were to do it, I would even encourage you to say, look at this great Black family-owned business.
Mm-hmm.
Hype them up, support. That's activism.
Okay, that's interesting because I think a lot of people would shy from that.
No.
By saying, hey, look at that barbecue restaurant's owned by some really good, like, what did you say? It's owned by a Black family restaurant, right? Mm-hmm. I think that would scare a white guy like me telling a bunch of people to go do that. Like, if I were to post that on Instagram, if Greg were to write, this is a great Black family restaurant, like, I don't think the reception he'd get would be good.
Do you think it's because it's coming from someone who looks like me?
I think it's because I think people are still in that mindset that I don't see color. Instead of saying, hey, I see color, because there's all these colors in the rainbow, and that's what makes it beautiful, right? They're sitting there saying, I don't want to. I think people are scared to say, like you, Greg, you and I, for the longest time, we didn't know if we could say Black or not because we just didn't want to offend anybody.
Correct.
Right? It wasn't that we thought they were bad people because they were Black. It's just we didn't want to offend anybody. Mm-hmm. So I think if you were to put that right on Instagram right now, I think you'd get crucified for why'd you have to say they were Black? So how do we change that, Danny?
Because right now we are supporting our Black community.
Okay. By the way, I am going to find where that restaurant is, and I'll post that. I'll post a link to their restaurant in the comments down below.
Hey, everyone, awesome. Now's the time to support Black family-owned businesses or Black-owned businesses. This is an amazing barbecue joint I found in Joliet. And who knows, maybe they were affected by the riots, because I believe last night I was watching in the news that there was some looting happening in Joliet. Maybe they have a GoFundMe happening right now to help, get new windows. This is hypothetical, but you can post, hey, donate here. That is how you support Black-owned businesses.
And you know what? That is going to go out.
Ally.
That is going to be going out on a limb, because John's right. I mean, I'm going to post that, and I am going to post that. I'm going to get feedback from some people saying, why can't you just say it's a great family restaurant? Why did you have to say it was a great Black family restaurant? And I'll just tell them to listen to the podcast. Be like, this is why.
Because it's the right thing to do.
But I think that's what's getting lost in translation, is people don't know if that's the right thing to do.
Then ask a Black friend.
Okay.
But at the same time, it's not our job, or it's not their job to educate us. We should educate ourselves.
Really quick, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but how do you know that's the right thing to do? How do you know? Who told you?
From what I've read and from the movements that are happening on social media right now, there are a lot of so in my industry, there's a lot of people that are compiling lists of Black-owned businesses to go and order from.
Terrific! So if you wanna get that going, we'll help you out with that.
This is in Los Angeles. I don't know many here.
Okay.
And I think we have one listener in Los Angeles, and I think it's you. So.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Of course. But yeah, it is the right thing to do because money goes a long way. Cash is king, right? And so that's another thing. So supporting businesses owned by Black people, by minorities in general. And it's not to say that we're not going to support white businesses either. Which it's a no-brainer. Like we go to Target, it's owned by a white corporation. Yes,
Right.
It's great in diversity and it's wonderful. Same with Walmart, white CEOs. It's the diversity. It's just like with any diversity movement, you have to make sure you are making an effort to go to those places. Otherwise, it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I read a post today that showed dolls of all different colors, and I heard that those are the times, or this is a great teaching moment where you can teach your daughter about different cultures and races, instead of ignoring it, right? Which makes sense. But a guy like me, who's just right now, I'm trying to get through the beginning of, I guess, what's gonna be called the terrible twos, all the way up until what, age 4, Greg?
It can last that long, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, we took a towel away and she melted down today. So what I'm saying is, when I'm do I just bring that up? Do I just say, hey,
Well,
this is a Black girl and this is a white
I
girl?
think, John, especially at her age, and this is where you have to make that conscious decision of, when it comes to buying toys and dolls and things like that, that you're not just sticking to one race of doll.
Okay, good point. I didn't think
when,
about that.
when you're buying the Barbies and stuff like that, buy a black one, buy a black Barbie, buy, my daughters are out of Barbies, but
Right.
they make
I hear what you're saying.
multicultural things like that, and
Yeah.
you
And
have to be conscious of that.
There's a lot of children's books written by people of color, and that celebrate or describe or like teach different cultures. There's lots of that. There's different children's movies that are inclusive as well, and just making sure it's just that extra effort. It's that extra effort of looking for the diversity. And it's not that hard. You can literally see it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Danny, what would you suggest if you are, because there are some family members that are never going to change. You're never going to change their minds. This is how they grew up, and this is just how they're going to be. What would you suggest someone of that not necessarily want to change their mind, but how would you open those conversations? How would you start that? I mean, you're coming from a background where you probably don't deal with that in a family level.
That's not the case.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Can I amend that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely.
Because what I'm finding in my circles is, when you get to a certain generation, there's the "it wasn't me" kind of context.
Explain that. I don't. What do you mean?
Well, it's very easy for people to say, I didn't own slaves. I didn't fight for the South in the Civil War. I wasn't around to protest Dr. King or call him names. I wasn't a part of the police office, part of the cops that beat up Rodney King. I'm not this. I'm not that. So it's not me that's doing these things. So don't come at me with saying I'm racist because I wasn't there. That's what I get a lot of.
Sure. And to me, that's being complicit, because you know that you're going to be okay either way. And that's privilege.
Exactly.
And even if it's just checking the privilege, the privilege goes a long way.
What do you mean checking the privilege?
Because if you say, oh, it wasn't me, I wasn't there. I wasn't a part of it. I stayed away from it. I didn't take part in it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't take part in it because you didn't feel like it was going to be your problem. And that is privilege.
And it's also giving away, you're actively giving up any power you have to create a positive change.
You're not using your voice for a positive change, 100%. Right. And using your voice for a positive change is so scary. I read and reread my post from the other night 20 times to make sure that I was eloquently and, didn't offend. But I knew that if I didn't post something permanent, instead of just reposting other people's voices, I knew that I would feel like I didn't do enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's interesting, because what I'm seeing now, because really what we have here are two issues that are connected, and that we've got, on one side, we've got protests, like peaceful protests going after the social issue that I can totally get behind and I can totally support. On the other half, we've got riots and looting and violence against other people and violence against cops that I'm not going to support. And so people are finding a hard time condemning one and supporting another, because it feels like if you're going to condemn the rioting and the looting, well, then you're not being supportive of the racism issue. And I'm like, no, that's not true. And then you get into that conversation, and that's harder to do with just a post.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's not easy, but it's with the looting and the destruction of property. It's even just switching it to, I'm not okay with the looting and the rioting. It's saying, I'm not okay with an innocent man dying.
Mm-hmm.
And the destruction. What did I see? I'm trying to eloquently state it. It's property. It's meant, it can be rebuilt. You can't rebuild a life. And that's where it's at its core. And
hang on, Danny. I'm trying to understand your point of view, because it sounds to me like you're kind of saying it's okay to destroy property versus, well, yeah, okay. It is okay to destroy property. It's not okay to destroy property, but it sounds like you're saying to me it's okay to destroy property but not kill a person.
It's more so that the person's life has more value than the property.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not okay. I'm a rule follower. I would not do that.
As we all are here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not okay that people are hurt, but it's not my place to tell people how to mourn.
Okay.
And some people are, opportunists, and there's going to be that on both sides, which is so unfortunate. But instead of focusing on that, focus on the change we can make. The looting and the rioting will end, but the racism is something that we have to always work towards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just thinking, because this
is a very polarizing concept.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so hard. It's such a polarizing concept, and I understand that, and we're all going to have our opinions on it.
Right.
Well, and what happens is that if you start that conversation, because it is so polarizing, people will. Yeah, they can't get. I mean, you're talking to them and you're having a conversation, but they've got shields up. I mean, they're not taking in, they're not considering, they're not actively listening. It's just they're just waiting for their turn to start spouting what they want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just need to be clear. I don't think we're going to solve racism on this podcast.
No, yeah, we're not. And
I wish we could. I really wish we could, but I don't think it's going to happen.
But I think she's right though. We have a platform. It's a small platform, but if we can get one person to rethink or question themselves a little bit, or I don't know. I'm just always on the belief that if we just all decided to one day just be better than we were yesterday, if everybody decided to do that, like that's one positive step towards something that could be really beautiful and I guess what makes me mad is I thought we were a little bit there with this virus, right? We all started pulling together, we all started caring, and then the actions of one guy just brought out, I shouldn't say one guy, the actions of is it fair to blame all four of those, I mean, police officers? Is it fair to like those people that saw this man getting murdered and they didn't step in instead of just recording? Like, where do we, that whatever happened in Minneapolis, it's happened before. It's going to happen again. It's just, it saddens me that we had this collective world community moment with this virus, and now we're back to black versus white, and it's sad.
I'm just doing the research that people of color were dying disproportionately to non-people of color because of the resources around them, because of the systematic oppression, is part of the issue too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues for sure.
It's part of the discussion.
This
what's trying to change.
Right. This was a breaking point.
Little
for
by
sure.
little. It's literally been 400 years of building to this point and building to each point we've hit before it. So it's not, like you said, we're not going to solve it now, and we're not going to solve it even tomorrow or the next day or the next day. And like you said, it's about every day hope being better than you were before.
Yeah. I don't know I think that's a good place to end it. I mean, like you said, we're not solving it tonight, and we can just keep going over and over until this just becomes numb. But I think it's a good place to stop it now, or stop this here, give people the chance to think about this. Get back to us. Let us know. Look, the biggest thing that Greg and I always wanted to accomplish with this podcast was to broaden our horizons, understand where people were coming from, the one thing that I'm learning to do is not be married to my opinions and not think well, I'm just right, I'm always right, this is how I was raised, this is what's right, apple pie, all that stuff. And I'll give you a perfect example, and we were going to talk about this on another podcast, but I think it says something of kind of where I think Greg and I are growing. I think Greg's a little more grown up than I am, but the Frozen, there was this for Frozen 3, they're talking about having Elsa have a girl, like a female, a girlfriend instead of a boyfriend, right? My first thought was, why do we need that in a Disney movie? Because when I was a kid, I didn't care who dated who. I just wanted to see Luke Skywalker beat Darth Vader. I didn't care. And that's where my thought was. So I put up a post saying, do we really need this in a Disney movie for kids? And we got all these returns, and it really opened my eyes to the idea that, wow, I was really looking at that the wrong way. Like, there is an opportunity here where I could explain this to Gwen, maybe not at the age that I thought was appropriate, but maybe at the age that it needs to be. Not now. The movie probably won't come out for 6 years, but I'm just saying what I like about this podcast, and the reason Greg and I wanted to start this podcast, and the reason why we brought you on, and the reason why we brought on Kurt the Cop, was because we wanted people's opinions to make change. And it's like you said, we got to get uncomfortable. I'm really uncomfortable this entire podcast, but I feel like I'm learning something, at least a little bit about myself. And so I thank you for coming on, Danny, and letting us know how you feel. And what do you think, Greg? Anything?
I've said it on the show once. I'll say it again. Progress is a moving target, and you have to keep growing. You have to keep learning. And if this is the moment that you can actually take a look at what's going on in the world and, reevaluate yourself. And if I had to say, like, if you're going to start changing the way you're thinking about different cultures, different groups of people, the number one change you can make and right away is to really check your language, both what you're saying externally and then what you're saying internally. If you see a black man walking down the street and maybe his pants are slung low and he's just walking along, he's got the white tank top on, if the first thing that's coming into your head is negative, you got to check that, because that's just a dude walking down the street. It doesn't matter what his clothing is. It doesn't matter you just got to check it and say, you don't know his history. You don't know what he's doing. Maybe he works third shift. You don't know. But automatically I see a lot of people that jump to whatever that is. And I just picked the most stereotypical thing that came to my head. It could be anybody working a roadside stand. It could be somebody on the street. It could be somebody at a counter. Doesn't matter. You got to check your language.
And your first thought does not mean anything. Your first thought is your first thought. It's what the second and third and fourth are. What comes out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And the things you do, your actions. It's just like, let's say when you are in a relationship and you break up for whatever reason, and then you get back together. You broke up for a reason. Those reasons should be discussed. And if there are things that you need changed within that relationship, you expect that person to take action. And if the actions don't change, then that means that they don't want to change.
That's good. The last thing I'm going to add is basically this is marriage advice I give people, but I guess it could be the same for life. Don't be so consumed with being right. Just work on getting it right.
Yeah.
So
working on getting it right. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
That should be the name of your book, John.
Working on getting it right.
No, the name of my book's going to be I'm Writing a Book. All right, Danny, thank you so much for this. I appreciate it. As always, you are more than welcome to be on this.
Articulate. I'm just as confused and uncomfortable as you are.
Well, I really appreciate it when John said, hey, Danny contacted me. Did you see the Instagram? I'm like, we got to have her on because, we were a bunch of middle-aged white guys talking about the topic.
And I asked because I knew you would be willing to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely.
You guys are great. And
so anybody else that is listening to this and you want to give your opinion, there's comments, there's DMs, you can contact us. And look, man, we're not here to stop anybody from expressing themselves. We're here to learn, get better.
No one's perfect.
Yep. All right, man.
Thanks, guys.
Whether this is Topic Thunder or in the middle or just a mishmash of something new, thank you for listening. Danny, as always, we really appreciate it. Greg, thank you, sir. Johnny and the Greg podcast. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.